Hi, everybody. Once again, your pal, Todd Dammit Kerns, is here. Brought to you by our friends at Sontronics Podcast Pro Microphones. Thank you so much for making us as loud as possible. Today, my very special guest is an old friend, a man I've been a great admirer of for a long time. He is so amazing that the McAuley Schenker Group, as found by Michael Schenker from UFO, when he came across this man, he changed the name to the McAuley Schenker Group. That's how amazing this guy is. He's played in the McAuley Schenker Group. He has been with Survivor. He has been with Michael Schenker solo for the last several years. And of course, you know him as a member of Raiding the Rock Vault with myself. He has a current group together called Black Swan with Jeff Pilson from Dokken and Foreigner, Reb Beach from Winger and Whitesnake, and Matt Starr from Ace Frehley, and Mr. Big. Here he is right here, ladies and gentlemen, my very dear friend, Robin McAuley, his new solo album out on Frontier Records. This handsome bastard right here, Robin McAuley.
Wow, did you hear that?
It's beautiful. Did you say that? I didn't see your lips move.
No, yeah.
Recording in progress.
Recording in progress. It's like it's my own little personal assistant that I didn't even know I had.
Your little ghost self.
Exactly. So you were just saying you've been up since 5 a.m. working on rock and roll. This is the most least rock and roll. Well, it's actually either the most rock and roll or the least rock and roll thing a guy can do.
I'm not your normal rock and roll guy. You know, I don't like doing stuff that everybody else does. I eat 5 a.m. in the morning. I gotta get the idea down. Yeah.
That's
Sometimes
that.
I get up in the middle of the night because I come up with a great lyric, and if I don't get up and go sit on the loo or something and just quickly write it down or bring my phone and put it into my notes, I'll forget it. And so then I'll go back to bed and Gina goes, "Really?"
You woke up the whole family for that? Yeah.
Like, having an affair with your lyrics.
Well, that really is the thing about that. People don't really understand how haunting it can be. That kind of feeling of like, I don't know how it works for you, but I mean, someone plays you a riff or something like that, and you kind of go to bed with this idea, and you can wake up in the middle of the night going like, you know what? I've got it. That second part.
Yeah, because I habitually I can't just sit down and listen to a musical idea and go, oh, there it is. Sometimes it's spontaneous. Sometimes it's really there. And then sometimes I must eat, regurgitate, and eat it again. And I have to live with it for sometimes days because I need to own the thing.
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
suddenly it's like, and then I'm going, what a dumb shit.
Well, that's not unusual. I think in reality, when you think about how many times people, like when you see a film, say, that film was a script that's been rewritten and edited and and then it's the film you've seen. Songs can often be like that too, but not quite. Like, say, if you and I were handed the same piece of music, it'd be a very interesting experiment to see how differently lyrical and melody ideas would be polar opposites in many ways.
That's an interesting. I'll segue into something. I remember when I first teamed up with Michael Schenker.
Sure.
Right? So, being extremely Germanic as he is, we would literally lock ourselves. I mean, I remember we were in Hanover, up in the north of Germany. It was snowing like crazy. It was bitter cold, which, being Canadian, that.
I know all about that.
I'm Irish, so I'm not completely, dissociated from it.
No, yeah.
But anyway, we would set a task, and he'd come in with ideas. And at the time, all we had was like a 4-track Tascam, right?
Okay, sure, yeah.
Right, one of the early Tascams, and I would set a pace. Can I write 3 different melodies and 3 different sets of lyrics to every single idea?
Wow. So you're like are you almost like auditioning, like pick the best of the three?
And that's what I would do. And
Wow.
it's just a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work because you get fixated on something and you go, nah, no, that's the better one. And then I would have to try and, dump that one and completely wipe the memory board and just take a fresh start, jab at it. And so we have a couple of songs of the new Black Swan stuff that I went, no, that's it. That is definitely it. We get in and it doesn't work. It works, but it's not like,
Right.
And so 6 o'clock this morning, 5 o'clock this morning, I went, I got you, you little bastard.
It's like catching fish or something.
It really is. And then of course you get in, you stand up to the mic and you go, So it's a vibe a lot of the time. And we've developed a sort of a sound now,
Yeah, absolutely.
We have this little slogan. We have, no BS and Black Swan.
So it is the second, what do you call it? The sequel to Black Swan.
It is a sequel, yes. And we're knee deep. There's all songs are written. So I'm about 6-7 songs in already.
So how is the writing process work in that camp? So this is like, just really quickly, so anybody who's watching that doesn't know, it's yourself. It's Jeff Pilson, Dawkin, Foreigner, Reb Beach from
Winger, Whitesnake.
Exactly. And Matt Starr, our buddy Matt Starr, yeah.
And your buddy Matt. It's sounding amazing on your stuff, by the way. Amazing.
Oh, yeah. He's Matt, Ace Frehley, Gene Simmons, Mr.
Thunderdome.
He really is. He really is. Was the first album recorded in a group setting, or were you doing that in a more remote way as well?
I was always there with Jeff. Reb lives in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And so he would come in literally whenever he'd be off at the time. Mm-hmm. When we did Black Swan 1,
yes.
He was also knee deep in Winger and Whitesnake shows.
He's a busy guy.
Yeah, as was Jeff with
Foreigner.
Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was 5 nights a week in
Raiding the Rock Vault.
And Raiding the Rock Vault. So it was like a toss-up. I would say, Jeff, look, I'm only home Thursday. Friday, when are you home? He goes, I'm not home this week, but I'll be back in Sunday, but I might have to leave Wednesday, but maybe I could stretch it to Thursday. So it was like, right? So I'd get in there after landing at a home. I mean, literally, as you know, I drove in.
Yes.
And I'd arrive home at about 3:15 a.m. Thursday morning.
Right.
And I'd be over at Jeff's by noon. With mucho coffee in hand.
yeah.
And trying to get this thing done on a Thursday and a Friday. I'm back into my car Saturday morning, heading back to to Sin City.
And all of these things are related to your rest and health as a vocalist, because I've never seen you in any way. And so one thing I will say for you is you have this ability to just show up. It's not a really thin head voice type thing. There's this big, thick Irish voice.
I know, no, it's not like that at all.
Well, it sounds like it.
No, I can think myself into a stupor.
Oh, sure.
I just have to think it, and I'm going, it's not going to work. And
yeah.
I'm always in panic mode because you know.
Yeah, I know.
And I like it to work.
Yes, of course.
And I'm always envious of musicians, who can pick up a bass or a guitar or play keys or pound on the drums, and I'm going, you guys don't know.
No,
you're an amazing singer, so you do know.
I appreciate that.
But those that do not sing,
I know.
That do not sing, and those that do not have to stand out front, if they have a stinking cold or a hangover, they can get through it.
Play guitar, yeah.
They can get through it, but if you have to stand up there and everybody's going, see?
I know, it's like, which you probably learn very young as a singer too. It's like, well, if you've done it to yourself, be it staying up all night or drinking or whatever it is, then it's all on you. The
rest is mucho conducive to how you perform as a singer.
But that's the thing. I was thinking about this because a lot of as singers get older, and we have seen a lot of our heroes still doing it. The Paul McCartneys, the Mick Jaggers, Paul still has
vodka, by the way.
Well, you've been up since 5. Good Lord.
Actually, no. There's an Irish drink called pochine. Have you heard of that?
No, I've not.
Well, it's probably on a par with moonshine.
Oh, sure. Okay. So yeah.
No,
And
this
it's
this is not moonshine.
not for the faint of heart, I assume.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But you're right. There are those who.
But I mean, like, there, you see, like the Robert Plants of the world who kind of realize who he was at 23. And he's like, he sort of adjusts his stuff. He sings his stuff now, but he sings it like a mature elder statesman. Yeah. But I've never seen you pull any punches. I don't see you pull punches.
You are too kind.
No, it's impressive because you're, like I say, it's this big, powerful voice that it's about range. Of course, it's always about range, but there has to be feeling in there. And I think this as a vocalist as well, because it's one thing for a guy to sing high. It's one thing for a guy to play really fast guitar, but if it doesn't say anything or nobody feels anything, then, because singing, it really is kind of like acting. You have to kind of be in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I have definitely learned is stick to what you know. Stick to your little box, and like ping pong, you go doom, doom.
Yeah.
You know which areas to hit, and you know which ones to avoid.
Sure.
And if you can perfect that, and make it sound convincing, and deliver the performance, then it's always going to be pretty close to where you're at. And I think there's so many that pull the stretchy chord, and then you're going and it's just going to sound
right.
And I've learned, don't take it on if it's not for you. And some singers go, no, I can do that, because they just want to sing everything. And I'm going, yes, you can do it, but it doesn't sound very good.
Right. It's good to know your strength. A man has to know his strengths. Yeah. And his limitations. Yeah. So how does it, going back to...
this is like a therapy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Know your strengths, your limitations.
We say that, but I think we all miss the mark on those things. As a vocalist, you can't help but go on stage thinking like, well, whether you have a cold or you didn't sleep well, I'm feeling kind of rough, I'm still going to go for it. You're really kind of...
That's what we do.
Exactly.
That's what we do. And when good old notes coming, you're going, man, I don't have another one in my head right now. So okay.
Miles Kennedy and I always say, we'll listen to Depeche Mode will come on, Your Own, and I'll go, this guy's a genius. Why didn't we just sing like that? And you would never have to worry about getting a cold or being tired. You'd always have that kind of, but it's a very specific thing. Yeah.
No, it is. It is.
So for you, whenever I think about, growing up in Ireland and all that, it's always a McCourt novel or something, you can't help but think like, is it you, giant Irish Catholic family, small house? Like what is your...
Oh my God. Also, me is one of 10 kids.
Okay, there you go.
4 from the bottom rung, equally spread, 5 brothers, 5 sisters.
Wow.
Just lost one of my sisters, not to the pandemic, but through dementia. Actually, on Sunday.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Sister Vera. We grew up in the country, about maybe 45 minutes outside the city of Dublin, in a very famous place called Tara, which of course our patron saint, St. Patrick, is reputed in the I know my history, in the year 432 AD. It's when he brought Christianity to what was then a pagan Ireland.
There you go. Wow.
And trying to preach Christianity to a pagan was like, yeah, whatever. It's like here come the Vikings,
Yeah.
And so he picked up the Shamrock, and it's the trilogy,
Right.
Which if you noticed, right, that's the old ancient trilogy, right?
There you go.
And it's continuous, but 1 stem, 3 leaves, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, whichever side of the fence you're on. And so that was his best way of going 3 persons, 1 God, 1 stem, 3 leaves, and the together with St. Patrick bringing Christianity, the Shamrock became the emblem of the country. My dad was a soldier. My uncles were soldiers. My mom was a very hard working housewife.
Right.
I lived in London for about 12, 15 years. Did most of my growing up in London.
I'm sure. Yeah. You can only do so much growing up in the country.
And, you know.
How about the fact, because I grew up in a small town as well. Do you ever imagine a parallel universe where you married your high school girlfriend and stayed in Tara, the end? You know, I mean, it's just, yeah.
And let me think. No.
I'm glad you didn't, because I think about that sometimes.
I did see at the prime age of 12, sitting cross-legged with about, I'm going to say 20 kids. I did actually see the original lineup of Thin Lizzy.
Oh, wow.
With Phil and Brian Downey on drums and Eric Bell on guitar. And
wow.
At that time, and for a long time afterwards, you could not, but you had no access to rock on daytime radio. Right.
No.
And there was the preconceived idea, which probably still exists today, that, you know, rockers stay up all night, man. You know?
Yeah.
So what's the point of playing it during the day? Put it on at night when they're all awake, you know.
Sure, yeah.
And so there was a radio station, Radio Luxembourg.
Okay.
Tiny little country.
Yeah. No, I've been there.
But it played a lot of rock music, and then Lizzy had re-recorded an old Rebel song. Whiskey in the Jar.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And they did a remake of that, and of course it was huge at Radio Carolina, and people started hearing about it. And enter Brian Robertson, actually not even at the time, who was still with Eric Bell, and so it was like this glorious piece of music. And so radio started to pick up on it, and the band started to garner some major traction. Next time I went to see them, I think, was Live and Dangerous at Wembley.
Wow.
Right.
So is that the earliest days for you that you thought, I want to do that? You know, is that kind of...
Oh man, I used to play drums. I mean, I think you know that. You know.
Yes.
Very badly, I sucked, but I.
Was that a Ringo thing, or who?
Yes, I was. You know, I would always love doing. I get talked into singing backups, right? And the singer fancied himself as a drummer, and then he'd get tired and he'd go, I don't want to sing this. You sing it. And I go, I'm not going out front. He goes, yes, you are. I'm going back there to play drums. So I doosh dish, right? And so I'd be out front, and then the guitar player would whisper in my ear, he goes, you're so much better than that other guy. Right? And that kind of went on and on and on. And then suddenly we had a management, and this is all still in Ireland as a kid. I was playing like ballrooms.
Okay.
Ireland was big for the big band sound, and there would be 8-10-piece bands with a horn section playing top 40 music, just killer stuff. I mean,
sure,
just like the records. And then we had a manager, and he introduced a girl singer, and that girl singer her name was Tracy. She went on to form her own band called Tracy and the Grassroots, got a TV show, and left us in the dust. And I used to do some duets with her, and she would go, oh, you have to sing.
Is that right? Wow. It's amazing that if you had not found this singer guy who wants to play drums once in a while, or Tracy, that you may not have ever stepped out front.
Never my intention. Never wanted to be a singer, ever.
Thank God for those people.
To this day, I don't really I tell everybody, I don't really regard myself as a singer per se. There are singers I know, like Robert Plant, as you mentioned, and Paul Rodgers and Lou Gramm, and they're singers.
Well, sure, yeah, but
I don't know what I am. I just
we lump you in with all those guys. There was
a wagon passing, and there was a spare seat, and I snuck on, and they didn't kick me off, and I love doing it. I didn't for many, many years. I really didn't.
Really?
I really didn't. I felt it was like, you know, I would say no. I would refuse and go, no, you'll be fine.
Really?
And I didn't actually really sing. It was purely, I never drank alcohol.
Yeah, I know that.
19 years in living in Ireland. And then I arrive in London, and my brother-in-law goes, come with me. And down to a local Irish pub that was packed right through the weekend with people and music, and it was always live music. And they literally put me standing on stage, and the keyboard player came to me like about a month later, and he goes, that was pretty good. You want to join the band because we're getting rid of the singer.
Is that right? Wow.
And I ended up with that, doing top 40 for about 2.5 years. I could tell you now where I'd be playing New Year's Eve 2 years down the road.
Is that right?
Our book we were, and I'm going, oh, this is a piece of cake. And I keep a day job,
Sure.
And I my trade was cabinet maker. I was cabinet maker apprentice, and then when I moved to London, you need a job because music's not going to pay for it. And I ended up working at the BBC in set production for quite a number of years, until out of Germany came the remake of Stairway to Heaven with myself and Bobby Kimball with Far Corporation.
Right.
And that same Top of the Pops top 40 set that we used to always sneak in and take a look at from the green room, watching everybody perform. I end up walking on there one day myself, and the guys are just having an absolute blast. They're going, dude. They don't say dude in England, but it was like going, get back to work, And so that was really, I was in Grand Prix before that,
Yes, the group, the band.
And we toured with Maiden and Sammy Hagar, and we did all of that sort of stuff. And we did Bruce's first tour, the Peace of Mind tour.
That's right.
Yeah. And it just sort of, I only ever wanted to make one record, and I looked at it, this little 7-inch piece of plastic single, and I went, that's kind of lonely looking, And it kind of just went on from there. And Far Corporation, when we released the remake of Stairway to Heaven, sold over 2 million singles just in the UK alone.
Wow.
And nobody saw that coming, because when, I just to transgress a little bit, what got me into Frankfurt, it was at the end of Grand Prix, nothing was going on, and Brian Robertson and Phil Filthy Taylor left Motorhead. And
right, so Brian from Thin Lizzy, Brian was in Motorhead at some point as well.
Motorhead. So they both left Motorhead at the same time, and they had Chris Glenn, MSG's bass player.
Okay.
And I got a call. Hey, you want to come sing? And they were putting a project together, and I would have all of these engineer people I knew and former band members going, are you sure about this, dude?
Yeah.
But those guys can be, you know what I'm saying? And sure enough, I'd arrive at the studio, we'd have a 12 noon downtime, and I'd be hanging around all day. And those guys would be drinking, this is a pint glass, they'd be drinking pints of cider mixed with port.
Oh.
True story. I've told the story many times. And then Robbo would come to me at about 9 p.m. going, see you, Robbie, man, are you ready to sing the blues? And I'm going home, dude. So I would have to wimp out, because I just wasn't able for that kind of.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Young, man.
It sounds like it was just a reason to get together and get drunk.
But it was major rock and roll time,
Oh, absolutely.
I end up in Germany, and then I got invited to the studio to sing Stairway to Heaven, and we laughed our asses off. We went, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't pitch it. And just very fast forward, I'll stop talking. So our first TV show was in Berlin.
Okay.
And we had 86 million viewers.
Wow.
We had Kate Bush on the show. We had Slade on the show.
Wow.
We had, there was a couple of punk bands, because punk was really kicking in. There was us, Far Corporation, and Robert Plant.
Wow. So Robert Plant was there when you were singing?
Robert Plant was there doing his solo thing, and we were, you get your camera set up during the day for rehearsals, and the guitar player said to me, Robert Plant is staring down the back of your neck. we didn't see him on the schedule, right? And I went, sure he is. And I look around, and Robert Plant's pointing his finger straight at me, and he goes, and we had this big black and silver backdrop with Stairway to Heaven on it, and he's going, oh, I can explain that, mate. And we had a great time. I went, no, talk to him, dude's producer. Not my idea. And we have 1,001 photos together where we had an absolute blast. And I had a huge mullet at the time. So then all the English newspapers would start doing a 1-and-1. Here's Robert's mullet. Here's Robin's mullet. You know, 2 hours, and they would start. They had nothing better to do. They'd start comparing mullets and all. Oh man.
Well, it was the style at the time. Yeah, everybody could be forgiven for that.
But you know, it was a huge hit. The album was top 40, made a second album that did great. And then Scott Gorham came into that, so I got to actually perform. My point is a whole thing. I actually got to play, perform, and record with both Brian Robertson and
Scott Gorham.
And Scott Gorham.
2 guitar players from Thin Lizzy, yeah.
That I grew up going, oh my God.
Funny, right?
So
yeah. You had arrived. At that point, did you finally say to yourself, I guess I'm a vocalist? Did you finally, accept the fact that you were a singer? I
kept getting jobs.
Falling ass backwards into singing jobs?
I kept getting jobs. And during my Grand Prix days, Michael Schenker, right on the eve of us going out on tour with Sammy Hagar, came to a warm-up show in London, and he had Chris Glenn with him, and he had the late and great Cozy Powell with him.
Sure, yeah.
And Andy Nye, that played keyboards at the time, that also played on George Michael's Faith album, right?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and I get a call from Cozy's people the next morning. Michael's in the rehearsal room. We're very impressed. We'd really like you to come in and settle in with us guys. And of course, we were stablemates because we were all on Chrysler's records. And I went, I can't do that because I'm leaving for tour. And Kerrang! Magazine gave me the worst write-up. They were going, who the hell is this Irish upstart? Think he is, refusing to join Michael Schenker. Wow. And 4 years later, when Stairway was flying up the charts, we hit number 5 or something on the top 10 charts, and Rudolph is in his studio. Rudolph hears the track and he goes, it's important we find out who's singing this. And Michael goes, I can tell you who's singing it. It's the same guy that refused me 4 years ago. So they tracked me down in Birmingham in England. I was out doing some Far Corporation promo work, and I ended up against my better judgment. I ended up in Hanover for a whole weekend with Rudolph and Michael. I was the last of 17 singers auditioning.
Oh, is that right? So you actually...
I was the last of 17.
Was Rudolph involved with Michael at this point?
Rudolph did all of the... He recorded everything, engineered everything, sat with us, tweaked us, and was basically directing what he thought. And I was back in London, and then I get the call from Michael. And Michael goes, so Klaus and the management and Rudolph and myself, we think you should be the singer.
Great.
And he said, but it comes with a change. And he said, I know we discussed the MSG logo and how much you love it, because it's always been one of my favorite logos. It just sits right there, it's just great.
It's great, yeah.
And all the guys in Grand Prix, I remember we used to go, it's a killer, it's so identifiable. It's just so Michael Schenker,
It is, yeah.
And he said, I'm going to change the name. And I went, that is a really bad idea. You've established that name, yada, yada. And he goes, no, wait. He goes, your last name begins with an M. And I went, yeah, so does Phil Moggs. And he goes, no, he said, but I need a partner. I'm fed up, like, flying the flag, all alone, single-handedly. And I'd like to split everything, but I want to keep your MSG logo if you want, but it will become McAuley Schenker. And I went, that is a really, really, really bad idea. No, I did. I swear. And I said, it will cause so many problems and confusion. And sure enough, you could find a McAuley Schenker album in a UFO bin, and a Scorpions bin, and a Michael Schenker Group bin, and sometimes even in a Grand Prix bin, because people were going, I don't know who this is. And I went, just keep the stupid logo, for God's sake, and over time, there was more emphasis on the logo, which people identified with.
Sure.
People identified with. And so That sort of ended the story, and the Michael Schenker history. We went on to make 3 albums in 6 years, which really wasn't much, because there was difficulties to.
It seems like a lot longer than 6 years, but it was literally, that was a 6-year chapter for you?
85 was when we really started getting together. We had a bunch of demos that Rudolph had engineered. We got picked up almost immediately by EMI. We got a massive deal with EMI, I remember.
So good.
And then, we did all the Monsters of Rock Festival with the Maidens and Jovi and Leopard and Ozzy. It's just like there's a big hoo-ha about the whole thing.
Sure.
And 91, 92, as you know, was that sort of grunge alternative.
Yeah.
Sneaking in. It was like, go away, dinosaur. We don't need you anymore. And we had finished the last record, the studio album, which full circle. Jeff Pilson played bass on.
Right.
And James Kotak was the drummer. And of course, James Kotak ends up, Rudolph loved his playing.
Yeah.
Ends up in the Scorpions.
For a long time.
Jeff Pilson was best man at our wedding.
There you go.
Right? And so here we are, Black Swan, all of these years later. And there's Mr. Pilson. And it's a funny old game, isn't it?
It is funny that way.
Funny old game, football.
So were you living in like Germany around the time you were with Michael?
I lived in Germany while I was working with Michael. I mean,
in Hanover?
I stayed in Hanover.
Okay.
But I had also been living in Frankfurt.
Okay.
I'd also been living in Frankfurt because of Far Corporation. We did a huge amount of TV shows and
right.
And special appearances and all of that sort of stuff. And Scott Gorham was with us for a lot of that stuff.
Wow.
And it was like an all-star lineup, a lot of heavy hitting. Kurt Kress was a German drummer that played with Falco and played with Passport, lots of
Right.
German stuff. A huge set of writers, and of course, that's where the whole Milli Vanilli thing came from, because we were there when that was being put together.
Right. That's a whole German phenomenon, isn't it?
That was the whole thing, and of course, Bonnie M was in that studio, and they're multi platinum. I think 9 times platinum in Canada, believe it or not.
Yeah, they were massive in Canada.
Massive.
Yeah.
So we knew all of those people. And, he did a lot of hip hop and he did a lot of techno, and all of that would come through the studio. So we'd see all of these different people. And Far Corporation was kind of an early rock vault.
Really?
Yes, he wanted an all-star lineup, members from different bands, and he wanted to put out original material with 1 or 2 covers, and the covers usually became the singles. So it was kind of the same thing back then. 30
years earlier.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That's as much as I can tell you.
So did MSG bring you to America? Is that where your first sort of like?
We had Andy Johns, God rest his soul. We loved when we heard the Cinderella record. We just loved.
Great.
We loved the whole sound.
Great.
And so we got Andy in. Andy came into Germany. We did the pre-production. We ended up in Denmark, in Puck Studios with George Michaels in the A Room. Recording his Faith album.
Oh, okay, wow.
And then Andy decided that he wanted to mix here in LA.
Was that your first trip to LA, or you had been touring?
In my first trip.
What year is that?
That would have been 87.
And you fell in love with America, or Los Angeles?
I did not. No, because the guitar player and the bass player said, "Oh, if there's anybody going to love it, it'll be you." And I think I was the last one. And I went,
"Is that right?
I can't wait to get out of here." Came back in to do writing, and I would go jogging every morning, and the sun was shining, and I'm going, "Oh."
I get it.
and I completely got it. And
yeah.
I absolutely went, "This will be it." And I had a couple of 3 trips back in and out, but I always came back, and I very, very quickly started to make inroads to making myself all legal, because we would tour and we would come in and out, and it was a pain in the butt all the time with visas.
Oh, I know.
Well, all of that sort of stuff. And we would pay a fortune for lawyers to put all of that sort of stuff together.
Of course.
And I actually had the same lawyer that got Wayne Gretzky into the country.
Oh, wow. There you go.
It gets smaller and smaller, the world. and he goes, enough of this stuff. And he said, I'm going to get the papers together and you're going to go for your green card. And that's all there's to it. Great. And he said, at the same time, I'm going to cost me money, of course. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, he said, I'm going to put you into the lotto because he said, it was like, at that time, he said, I think it was 40% more grace given to Irish people because of how they were treated throughout the building of the railroads.
Sure. Yeah. And
I went, That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Hell yeah.
And my appointment was 7 a.m. in the morning downtown. Right. And I get in with him and I walk up to the window and it was a Japanese American gentleman. And he goes, and he breaks out an 810. And he goes, could you sign that for me before we do anything? No way. I swear. And my lawyer looks at me and he's going, do you actually need me? And he goes, here's the bad news. He goes, I know you paid me. And you're not getting your money back. You actually won on the lotto, but too late. Wow. Right? So how do you like that? I could have like $3,000 or something at the time, right? And so I got a substantial amount of money. Yes. And I got my green card and I'm going, yes. And there's a period with your green card that, you can't travel, yeah. But you can't travel. And I did all of that and I immediately went for my citizenship after that. And so I'm 33 years in the country. How do you like that? Wow, it's amazing. Right? It's weird to think of you anywhere. Well, I mean, because I've only you're such an LA guy with an Irish accent. And it's my home, and it's I love it, and my kids are born here, and and I've always lived in California. I love it. Yeah. Have you ever? Let's talk about this now that we have a chance. I just realized. Oh, look at that! Look at that on vinyl, no less. Isn't it beautiful? Look at this gorgeous character. I know, it's like a vampire. It's so awesome. Like, my wife is the queen of like, whenever our friends put something out, we order it, and we ordered this right away. You are very, very kind. It's so great. It's so great. I know we talked about it when you were, when you were sort of putting it together. I know that there was. So is it? It seemed to come together very fast. It seemed like the process of talking about it to it actually being in my hands seems like, I know COVID has a way of making everything seem like everything happened a lot faster than it was. It did. And I think when we had one conversation, I really didn't want to do it. We had Black Swan. We came out the gate. We got the great hoopla around Black Swan. Yeah. So you immediately went solo. You're like Rod Stewart. And that really wasn't it. The label called me and goes, hey, we need to keep the momentum here. Do a solo record. And I'm going, I really don't want to do a solo record. I'm not a solo artist. And I wouldn't know what to do. And if you let me do what I want to do, then I'll do it. And they went, people are used to so and so and so, and they need more. Just give me more of you. And I'm going, you've already had more of me. And it's now it's going to get boring because you're on repeat, And we really kicked that around for almost a month. Right. And kept going, really do this. You should do this. So that's when I started thinking, oh man, what am I going to do? Who's going to listen? Yada, yada. Yeah. And so I reached out to my old Grand Prix buddies. I reached out to Tommy Denander that in Sweden that co-wrote a lot of songs with Jimmy Jamison. So there was my Survivor connection. And I had my Grand Prix connection. I had got Howard Leese on, And I was joking with Howard one day and I went, hey, give me a Bad Company song. And Howard said, no, I can't do that. But I do have a riff that's really not finished. It's just a little piece. Do whatever you want. If you hate it, doesn't matter. Use it not. So I got it, stuck it into my garage band, and I went, what do I do here? Right? And I came up with a verse, the chorus, and the lyric, and I sent it back to him. He goes, oh, this is really good. Is it on the record? And I went, I have no idea. I don't know yet, And we're just like compiling stuff. And then, Alessandro Del Vecchio's Frontiers, sent me about a dozen songs, and I'm going, oh man, this is just so laborious. then
I
it
know.
started to come together, and I said, I don't have a home studio. What am I going to do? So that we found a place, and it was just me and the engineer. And I went in with my blueprint, and he had absolutely no idea what I was going to do every time, because I'd send the roughs to Alessandro, and I said, I don't need much on the tracks. I just need to hear rhythm guitars, bass, and just where. That's all I need. I don't need all this other stuff. I'll give you all of those ideas as I'm writing. I'll give you all of that. I just need to hear what I need to hear. So I wrote them, and I tell Andy on the day, Andy Zuckerman, who ended up recording my vocals, and I'd say, hey, pick number 8. We'll do number 8 tonight. And he was limited because he writes scores, and so he would have a Tuesday and a Thursday, and sometimes a Sunday afternoon.
Wow.
And it would be a 7 to 9 session, and he goes, you don't have it in 2 hours, you don't have it. So I'd go in with my blueprint, and I go, okay, number 8, let's do it. See you Thursday.
That's great.
And I thought, well, Alessandro will make whatever changes he wants, and he didn't make any changes at all. And I'm going, it must be really good. So I think the only thing he did was on the very last track, Running Out of Time, he added one extra line of backing vocals. That's the only other voices on there. So I did my own lyrics, melodies, backing vocals, lead vocals, yada, yada, yada.
That's so great.
And it's a little mixture of everything that they wanted that I've done. And there's a little dive in the middle where I started getting a little homey boy and started singing about, the fields of Ireland and Runaway.
As you should.
And then one day I got really pissed off, and I heard this little piece that he had sent me, and I'm going to the beach. And I did. And that's where Wanna Take a Ride came out, and I went, oh, dude, this is like, boo, left field. And I went, you wanted this? This is what you're going to get? I have no idea what it's going to be like. And the traction on it has been nothing short of amazing.
Isn't that funny? I mean, it's you never know.
Billboard, yeah, I mean, it bounced off Billboard, but at least we hit Billboard with it. Came in at number 7, best new release, number 14, new artist, and they were laughing and going, we should change that title. New artist release.
Well, still technically, it's a solo album. You're a new artist. It's like
I'm still doing interviews.
There you go. Yeah.
And it's we got a huge amount of press off it, and it was like, wow, nobody hates it. Well, and it's very much middle of the road AOR. It's what I do. Getting back to what we said earlier, why would I do something that's out of my warm zone?
Well, I talked to Sebastian Bach recently. He's a friend of mine. I'm dropping names. Watch your feet. No, yeah. And it is one of those things where I'm kind of like, where you look at certain guys. No one wants to see Sebastian with short hair singing, like modern rock. It just he has to do what he does, Yes. And I think that goes for yourself and for me and for anybody else. It's sort of like, if you can actually pull it off, that you want to make those kind of adjustments. But every time, I don't want to change my thing every 3 years to become whatever's going on. So you just kind of just do what you do.
No, I'm definitely not a flavor of the week guy. Why? There's no point.
Exactly. Yeah.
And people will. I tried it actually many years ago with Tony Franklin.
Yeah.
And Greg Bissonette on drums, and a guitar player that's now the guitar player for a band on Frontier. It's called Edge of Paradise, Dave Bates.
Okay, yeah.
It was very heavy, and we did an EP, sent it out, and we thought this is going to kill, and it was right on the back end of when grunge was like disappearing. It was much heavier, and I got slammed. They were going, I don't hear it anytime on there. Right? And I'm going, you're not going to hear it anytime on there.
Yeah.
So there was all of this, no, you can't wear a different hat. No, you can't wear a different hat. No, that's not what you do.
Yeah, I know. You can't win. Yeah.
You can't win. And I mean, I think one way it's a compliment, but on the other flip side of the coin is you can only do what I tell you to do.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah,
Right?
well, it's different for the guy who, had a 2-year stint in Hollywood at 23 years old and then comes out the other side of it and carries that cross the rest of his career. You know what I mean? It's like you've had this giant discography and catalog of music, so people know you as a certain thing. So I think sometimes, whether it's Alessandro or whoever who says to you, I think you need to do what, sometimes it's good to have that objective opinion of like, people love you for this. So let's give them more of that. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you expect to, you know what to expect. And we all love going to the Robin McAuley restaurant. It delivers. It's delicious.
It always tastes the same. Always tastes the same.
Not at all. That's what I think is so interesting about the solo record versus the Black Swan record, because considering you were, we haven't even really talked about Rock Vault, because you were one of the original guys in the Rock Vault lineup. So you were there. I mean, the only reason it's not happening now is because of a fucking pandemic. It's kind of like the only thing that stopped that is because Las Vegas literally shut down. But you were doing that for 7 years.
The world shut down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You did that for 7. Was it 7 years?
Almost. Well, we were going into our seventh
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a blast doing that. I mean, I always loved going to the show, and then just by happenstance ended up on stage with you guys.
And rightly so.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Rightly so.
Start. Let's spend the next half hour talking about how wonderful I am. But no, it's and I think that so when you look at that in terms of like how busy you are, and then still managing to put product out is like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, again. Over an 18-month period, man, it's the worst movie ever.
I know.
The worst movie, and I certainly, for one, won't be ordering any reruns.
No, not at all. No, thank you.
And it was definitely a time of reflection and yada and all of the rest of the stuff. The positive side of that for me, no pun intended, positive side of that for me was I actually got to be home.
I know.
I got to be home. I didn't have to race out of here on a Saturday morning. I didn't have to race through the desert on a Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. Just to have my 2 days, Gina would always say to me, we change things around just for those 2 days because you're so stressed and we just try to just do things
right
that you'll feel, like you're home.
Yeah.
And I went, that's terrible. When I really started to think about, and I started to have to get to know my boys are now young men at 22 years of age, because they were not used to me being around and doing things. Suddenly I'm home and it was like, you're still here?
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest, that took a little bit to get back into the swing, and to have to leave now would be hard.
I feel the same way. It's had a very interesting impact on me.
Work, and we'll make it work. But just to feel that break and that distance again, would be kind of difficult,
Especially when it's one thing when it's just the way it is, but now that it's not the way it is, it feels like, and you're the first person I've really talked about this in any public forum, is that it's the first time in my whole life I've been a pirate, you know what I mean? And
right.
Then you realize I'm not really a pirate. I think I've just been playing the part of a pirate, and you realize, yeah. And it sort of brings things into play, like, well, maybe Rock Vault, it's different for you because you're traveling back and forth. But if you lived here and the Rock Vault was
up the
10
street.
10 minutes there and then 10 minutes home, and you roll your garbage out on Friday night or whatever, it's like your life becomes so, you're sleeping in your own bed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a very seductive thing. And that's the one thing about Vegas, and it's why I'm here really, is because that kind of thing is always sort of just hovering there, that, at any given point I could just go, I'm just going to stay in town and do A, B, or C or whatever.
Yeah.
But I know that the phone rings, and guys like you and me, it's like, you got to go. Put on your cape and fly to, save those people.
And I miss. There's nothing glamorous about tour buses, and anybody there isn't. No. But I miss the festivals. I miss those kind of gatherings.
Yeah.
Those are probably my favorite. I just love the festivals. I love the hoo-ha around them. It's just, there's just a madness
totally
that attracts me to it. And I live for that. I live for
and running into old friends in the food tent, like
all of it's just, you can't beat that. There's an energy that's unlike nothing else. The tour bus, you can keep all that. I love the show. I love it when we get there.
I know.
I love it when we get there, and I hate sound tech.
The old expression is, I'll do the music for free. It's everything else you have to pay me for. It's kind of
and it's true. I think Graham Bonnet thinks like that too. He goes, "Oh, fucking hell, I hate this."
I mean, I to complain about it is not really. It's not really what I'm doing. In reality, it's just hard. And the older you get, the less you want to be away from your family.
Because we know what it's like.
Yeah.
And we know the bits that we like more than the bits we don't like.
Yeah.
And that's okay because there is also the going to a show 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
There's bits that you'd rather not do, and it's just there is, and that's the reality. There just is.
No, exactly. And I think that's the beauty of it is the drug is so good. The being on stage playing in front of people is so good that you'll go through customs in every country and all that kind of stuff.
That's what we do.
It is what we do. It's the kind of thing, if I would have told my 13-year-old self, and then you got to stand in customs and it's a drag, my 13-year-old self would be going like, where's the negative in this? Let's do that.
I love airports.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love going to the airport. I love
shopping
being in the airport. I love sitting with my coffee and just.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm going to tell you, I see nothing wrong with that.
What I do miss is, because I see it online now all the time, all these names that I've gotten accustomed to in Australia and South America that I can't wait to go there to be able to be around them and sort of, share in that whole ceremony, the celebration of music. It's
you're younger than me. You're younger than I am.
Up here, not so much. I think.
But it's there's some juice left in the battery yet.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think it's because we've been home for so long, it won't take long before the airports and the bus and all that kind of stuff will be super normal, and that'll just be the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the rest of the year is a touchy-feely thing. I think people are going to see how it is. I mean, I saw 2 days ago, I saw tour dates for Judas Priest. Woohoo!
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
I mean.
And Rob's is Rob in his 70s yet?
He's around there.
Yeah. And I'm like, that goes, it was supposed to be touch and go. Everything was supposed to, we're going to see how it goes. And now you're just seeing boom, like dates. And I'm like, the doors are open. Everybody's going for it. It's not going backwards now. So I'm like, okay.
And even if they went, no, we have to stop again. Nobody's going to stop.
No one's going to stop.
My opinion. Not now.
It's like we tried that. Yeah.
So, and I did see, there's a lot of stuff already starting to bounce back into Vegas and. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's happening.
And we'll wait and see where that goes.
Wait and see.
Well,
either way, I look forward to whenever that is. I mean, now that the world is open, I'm sure our paths are going to cross quicker than later. I don't know what that means for Raiding the Rock Vault or anything in town, but hopefully whatever it is.
Asking, so the loyals are definitely keeping it alive.
They are indeed.
Sure, it's awesome.
Indeed. Well, either way, I'm excited to see you, and I'm so excited that you're doing your thing and making music, and
yours, Minefield is.
Oh, thank you. It's so much fun. I mean, that's the one thing about this, like you even saying on your project, it's kind of like when I'm sitting on the couch and someone says, "Do you want to do this?" It's like I can't think of a reason not to do it because I'm not doing anything else. So making remote records.
Anything on the books for you for Slash? Anything?
I
did see more dates lined up for Gino.
Well, Guns have to make up all their dates that got canceled, and then hopefully probably 22. At this point, I'm expecting to be kind of kicking around I got a bunch of other studio stuff. I got booked myself mostly studio stuff all for the rest of the year. And then because I didn't expect anything to be open, but now that things are opening, the phone's starting to ring in that department too.
Yeah, so good.
Who knows? Either way, I'm sure we'll cross paths. Hopefully it'll be in a tent backstage at a festival.
And hopefully the food's good.
Hey, it's free. That's the important part.
I know. That's another bummer. I usually can't eat before a show, It's like,
that's true. I know. Yeah. You get that kind of
we'll figure that one out. Just give it to me first. I'll figure it out.
That's the balancing act. All right, brother. Please say hello to the family. Pass some love on to those guys.
Your beautiful wife. And
yes.
I'll see you before you see me, maybe.
One way or the other, it's gonna happen.
Awesome. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Love you, brother. Bye-bye.
Bye.